How much money do you think the average person retires with? Not the multimillionaires you see in the media, but the typical American household. The number you have in your head, the one that guarantees a life of comfort and freedom, is likely wrong. Most of us float between two extremes: the fantasy of $1 million saved, or the constant crippling fear of having nothing at all. But almost nobody points to the actual data-backed reality that exists for the vast majority of people leaving the workforce. The number that shows what happens when people step away from decades of earning and saving for the very last time. And that number is truly shocking. According to Federal Reserve data, the median household retirement savings for families, headed by someone around age 62, the most common age for claiming early Social Security, sits between a mere $185,000 and $200,000. Think about that figure. That is strictly retirement money, 401s, IRAs, and specific savings vehicles. It is a number far below what most financial advisors would recommend for a comfortable, independent retirement. This number doesn't just represent financial instability. It represents a deeper, more profound emotional burden. The fear of becoming a burden to your children. It's the quiet anxiety that your savings will run dry, that inflation will consume your nest egg, and that you might be forced to rely on the next generation after decades of working to build your own way. But here is where the confusion and the self-doubt starts. You might be thinking, wait a minute, my total net worth is actually higher than that. The TV tells me most people own property, and you would be absolutely correct. The median total net worth for households approaching retirement is significantly higher, sitting around $400,000. However, we need to make a critical distinction right now between being wealthy on paper and being financially free. While your net worth is higher, the overwhelming majority of that extra value, sometimes up to 80%, is tragically tied up in home equity. This is locked, non-liquid, and non-income producing wealth. It's money that is literally stored in the walls, the foundation, and the property lines of your biggest asset. You can't use your kitchen cabinets to pay the electric bill. You can't chip away at the drywall in your house to buy groceries or cover rising medical costs. Unless you make the drastic choice to sell your home, significantly downsize, or take out a reverse mortgage, all high-risk financial moves, that home equity remains exactly what it is: equity. It is a liability in disguise, offering a false sense of security that disappears the moment reality sets in. When you strip away the illiquid assets and focus only on the spendable, cash-flowing retirement savings, the hard truth is that the typical American household has only about $200,000. This grim reality is the one that forces millions to return to work, take part-time jobs, or drastically cut back on the life they worked so hard to deserve. So, the critical question, the one that keeps you awake at night, is why? Why, after 40 years of working, earning, and contributing, is the average balance not higher? The answer isn't a complex secret hidden in Wall Street. It's not just one simple financial mistake. It's a combination of four crucial, yet often overlooked, psychological barriers that prevent people from reaching the stable, secure $1 million mark they truly desire. The first psychological barrier: the illusion of slow growth. The first reason the average person fails is a deep misunderstanding of the power of compounding. Most people simply never receive a foundational education on how investing actually works in their early careers. No one sits them down and explains that the first dollars you invest, the earliest ones, are the most important because they have the maximum amount of time to grow. They don't realize that compounding interest starts agonizingly slow, almost invisibly. It's like pushing a heavy snowball uphill in the heat it barely moves. Because the initial gains are so small, many people assume investing is too complicated. They grow discouraged, and they simply stop contributing by their late 30 seconds or early 40 seconds. They miss the critical point where the snowball starts rolling faster, generating more money from sheer market returns than from their own contributions. This initial frustration is the biggest killer of retirement dreams. Here's the stunning reality that highlights how low the bar really is. To reach the average savings of $200,000, you only need to invest the equivalent of $120 per month. That's just $4 a day from age 30 to 65. The average American only achieved the equivalent of saving $4 a day. This reveals that the system worked, but the individual lacked the consistency and faith to even meet this minimum, bare-bones commitment. The bar to be above average is incredibly low, yet most people can't clear it because they quit during the slow, early phase of compounding. The second psychological barrier, the false sense of security in cash. The second core reason for failure is the crippling prevalence of fear and the culture of cash is king. We are constantly bombarded by media narratives about financial horror stories. Perhaps a family member lost everything in the dot-com crash in the early 2000s. Or a friend's 401k was severely hit during the 2008 financial crisis. When that's the narrative you hear, of course, the stock market feels like a high-risk gamble. This fear leads to a psychological trap, believing that holding vast amounts of cash in a simple savings account provides a safe haven. They prefer seeing a stable, unchanging number in their bank account rather than dealing with the natural, necessary ups and downs of the market. This false sense of security is perhaps the most insidious financial monster you never see coming in retirement. While your balance looks stable, the cash is quietly losing its value year after year, eroded by the relentless force of inflation. For decades, many people have unwittingly traded potential long-term freedom for a temporary, fragile feeling of safety, sacrificing their future independence on the altar of fear. They never understood that cash is not safe. It is simply predictable in its decline. The third psychological barrier, the today over tomorrow trap. The third reason is deeply rooted in our culture's powerful desire for immediate gratification and the today over tomorrow mentality. It's human nature to choose short-term gratification over a deferred benefit that may be decades away. This is often fueled by a phenomenon called lifestyle creep, where every time your income rises, a promotion, a bonus, or a higher salary, your spending rises to meet it or even exceed it. Instead of directing that new income towards your financial future, you feel entitled to an upgrade. You upgrade the car to a newer model with bigger payments. You buy the newest phone every 2 years. You grab takeout or book expensive weekend getaways more often. It's always easier to justify spending that money on something you can enjoy right now, the tangible, visible rewards, than it is to send it to a retirement account you won't touch for 30 years. These seemingly small, daily choices stack up over 4 decades, completely eating away at the potential compounding growth your portfolio could have achieved. In a nutshell, most households are unknowingly choosing temporary joy and status today over permanent financial freedom and independence tomorrow. This is the silent, ongoing sacrifice that explains the low median savings. The fourth psychological barrier, the illusion of the safety net. And the fourth reason is the dangerous, widespread reliance on Social Security as a primary retirement plan. The average person often makes the critical mistake of treating Social Security as the backbone of their financial independence. But Social Security was never designed to replace your full working income. It was designed only to be a supplement, a safety net, to help cover basic expenses and keep you above the poverty line. The average monthly benefit for an individual is around $2,000 per person, totaling roughly $24,000 annually. However, data consistently shows that the average retired household spends $55,000 or more per year just to maintain a modest lifestyle. This leaves a devastating gap of over $30,000 annually. Relying solely on this benefit leaves you perpetually vulnerable to changes in policy, rising healthcare costs, and the relentless erosion of inflation. It creates a situation where the typical retiree spends their golden years constantly anxious about the gap their meager savings cannot possibly cover. The path to empowerment. How to clear the low bar. Now, for the good news, and this is the truth that gives you back control. The path to surpassing the average American is shockingly simple because the average American barely tried. If the median person retires with $200,000, you don't need financial perfection to beat that number. You just need two things: time and consistency. Pillar of action. Homeâ. Understand time as a financial weapon. First, internalize that time is your greatest asset. For those who started late or who have struggled, it is never too late to accelerate growth. If you start with nothing, the first $100,000 or $200,000 is the hardest because you are the engine. But once you hit the $200,000 mark, compounding takes over and your money starts working harder than you do. The 7-year doubling rule. Even for those approaching retirement, if you have that $200,000 saved at age 62, simply by delaying retirement for 5 to 7 years and letting that money stay invested without adding another dollar, that $200,000 can easily grow to $400,000 or more. You double your savings simply by letting the market do its work for a few more years. This is the strategic delay that can eliminate the fear of becoming a burden. Pillar of action. #2. Consistency over severe sacrifice. Second, embrace consistency over sacrifice. You do not need to live in deprivation or constant anxiety about every penny. If the average person saves the equivalent of $120 a month, just increasing that amount slightly and doing it consistently has massive implications for your future freedom. A household consistently contributing $300 a month, the cost of a couple of takeout meals a week, might retire with closer to $500,000. Someone contributing $500 a month might reach $800,000 or more. The difference between living like the average American and achieving true financial security is not about winning the lottery or making massive sacrifices that hurt your life today. It's about making a few small, consistent decisions now, rooted in the knowledge that you are building unstoppable momentum. You deserve to enjoy your golden years with freedom and dignity. You deserve to know that you will never be a burden to your family, that you have the resources to care for yourself and potentially help the next generation. The power to course correct is entirely in your hands, regardless of your age or how far behind you feel. It's time to stop the cycle of fear, to break free from the illusion of cash security, and to start trusting the simple, proven math of financial independence and consistency.